For some time, when listening to the passionate, grainy voice of Alex Jones, railing against the growing shadow of a totalitarian New World Order, there's been a growing feeling of déjà vu. Somewhere in the memory hole, there was a strikingly similar attitude, an almost theatrical, raspy, rapid-fire voice heard in a nearly forgotten sci-fi film from the mid-1930s. It wasn't until watching the gun control debate between Alex and the imperious, insufferable Piers Morgan that the pieces fell together. The film, featuring a distorted Alex Jones prototype, was Things to Come, based on the science fiction novel by futurist H.G. Wells, The Shape of Things to Come. Since Wells is often credited with coining the term New World Order, and Alex Jones is the leading pop culture opponent of the New World Order, the two men have, in a sense, already met. From Things to Come, a grainy old movie that had long ago fallen into the public domain, rise the images of a flawed but passionate nationalist resistor known as the Chief, and the pompous, imperious elitist by the unsubtle name of John Cabal. John Cabal heads a new technocratic proto-world government, and the Chief runs the last nation-state. In parallel, Piers Morgan represents a powerful, elitist world propaganda empire, while Alex Jones is the tip of the spear of a grassroots nationalist new media. Cabal and the Chief fight a hot war, while Morgan and Jones fight a world info war. Sadly, no really high-quality prints of Things to Come exist, but the film is one of the most important movies to come out of pre-World War II England, not because it is a particularly good film, but because it is such an amazing New World Order blueprint, a frontal assault on the idea of sovereign nations, religion, liberty, and individual ambition. It is also amazing because it has some of the greatest talent and most lavish production values available at the time applied to its production. Perhaps it is not a great film as cinema because its makers were true believers, too close and too sympathetic to its propaganda messaging to be objective about the film as art. In short, Things to Come is the story of a transition through a war from a world of individual nation-states to a futuristic vision of a world run by a technocratic class whose focus is spreading an elite core of humanity to the stars rather than being particularly concerned with the petty needs and rights of individuals. The action takes place in the near future, 1940, an intermediate future, 1970, and a distant future, 2036. In a representative community aptly dubbed Everytown, Things to Come embodies, it really reeks of the truism that socialist elitists love humanity but hate people. That certainly sums up the mindset of the main character of Things to Come, John Cabal, and of course his spiritual heir, Piers Morgan. As a direct result of decades of devastating war, Everytown is eventually taken over by a warlord gangster capitalist named the Chief. After becoming disillusioned with the existing order and the conflict inherent in free societies, we now see the middle-aged version of John Cabal as a kind of a visitor from space, actually a subterranean headquarters in, of all places, oil-rich Iraq. Cabal is back in Everytown to lay down the law to the Chief that the days of the nation-state, private enterprise, and self-interest are over. Cabal has been busy organizing the New World Order using science, I guess very much like Nazi Germany, to build an irresistible futuristic air fleet, and demands that the Chief relent. In other words, surrender or else. The or else is the so-called gas of peace, dropped from Cabal's massive bombers, which is supposed to knock opponents out. Strangely, it winds up being fatal to only one person, the gun-toting Chief. while the rest of the rabble seem to have a zombie-like smile on their face. It's actually logical that they chose Raymond Massey to play Cabal, who also played Abe Lincoln and John Brown, all dour fanatics with a messianic complex and a determination to bend the world to their own view, regardless of the human toll. The chief responds to Cabal's ultimatum by taking him prisoner, but not before a heated confrontation between the two world views.
The first thing we shall want is to get our planes in the air again.
Right, a laudable ambition. But our new order has an objection to private airplanes.
The impudence. I'm not talking about private airplanes. Our airplanes are public airplanes. This is an independent sovereign state at war. I know nothing about any old order. I'm the chief here, and I'm not taking any orders, old or new, from you.
Suppose I've walked into trouble.
Yeah, you can take that as right.
We have some hundreds of new type planes, and we're building more, fast. The factories are working again. We're gradually restoring order and trade in the whole Mediterranean area. We're scouting this region now to see how things are.
You found out. This is an independent sovereign state.
Yes, we must talk about that.
We don't discuss it.
We don't approve of independent sovereign states.
You don't approve.
We mean to stop them.
That's war.
If you will.
All right, I think we know how we stand. Burton, take this man. If he gives you any trouble, club him. You hear that, Mr. Wings over your wits?
My friends know my whereabouts. If I don't come back, they'll send a force to find me.
Perhaps they won't find you.
They'll find you.
They'll find me ready.
Tyrants did it. Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms. Doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them. Do you understand? That's why you're going to fail, and the establishment knows no matter how much propaganda, the Republic will rise again when you attempt to take our guns. My family in the Texas Revolution against Santa Anna, my family was at the core on both sides starting that because Santa Anna came to take the guns at Gonzales, Texas. Pierce, don't try what your ancestors did before. Why don't you come to America? I'll take you out shooting. You can become an American and join the Republic.
It's interesting, in the face of the so-called war on terror recently re-energized by the Boston Marathon bombing, that the novel goes into the subjugation and destruction of religious groups and, interestingly, predicts the targeting of Islam as a grave threat to the elitist vision of a New World Order. In the Wells novel, they go after Islam first, but they get around to eradicating the most visible symbols of Christianity as well. Alex Jones has been trying to warn people for years that Christians would be used by the godless elites to wage war on Islam, but would be betrayed and also destroyed once the Islamic world had been neutralized. In the CNN duel between worldviews, insufferable Piers Morgan was literally playing the part of John Cabal, and Alex was more or less cast by fate in the role of the chief. It's a striking comparison when you look at imperious Piers Morgan and Raymond Massey playing John Cabal, both dripping with condescension. Things get really spooky when you hear the voice and see the body language of Alex Jones and his counterpart, Sir Ralph Richardson, playing the chief. Jones is a Texas good old boy, a Jeffersonian natural aristocrat, blessed with near-total recall, and Richardson was an acclaimed British Shakespearean actor, but accents aside, their vocal instruments are remarkably similar. This storyline isn't just a corny relic of the past, it's a template of the future as important to the modern cabal of self-anointed masters as the Parthenon was to architects throughout the ages. Its weird staginess and broad strokes weren't the accidental result of primitive cinema technology. Filmmaking was quite advanced by the mid-1930s, some would say never to be surpassed. The film was meant as a vehicle to talk down to the unwashed masses, an early effort at what we now call predictive programming. The Depression-era audiences of young people unable to get jobs would be very receptive to any message of change and renewal. The young and disenfranchised would see nothing wrong with the central planning point of view of things to come. Younger audiences in love with anything new or different would think, why not get rid of a bunch of troublemakers like the Chief and his dirty backward companions so that we could live in a brave new world where men fly into space, live and work in compartments made of clear plastic, surrounded by flat-screen TVs. Even Hitler knew that young people would applaud the concept of out with the old and in with the new because they haven't learned to appreciate and value tradition. The Hitler Youth movement was proof of concept. To them, the past is a place they didn't live, and the present is a place where older people and their traditions seem to be a straitjacket on youthful energy. That's why Things to Come was specifically aimed at immature minds. That's also why such skilled filmmakers would intentionally produce a film so utterly lacking in subtlety. It should be noted that there is a major flaw in the film as a vehicle to brainwash young blue-collar people in the 1930s. In the segment that takes place in the idyllic technocratic future, the men of the future are shown wearing, of all things, short skirts. Not an appealing concept to the average moviegoer of the time, or any time or place outside of Nancy Pelosi's congressional district. Knowing what we now know about the cabal of elitists responsible for this movie, this inexplicable gaffe and misjudgment is a clue about the true nature of these self-proclaimed elitists. It's interesting to note that Things to Come has a connection to Star Trek in this regard, a later and much more successful effort at predictive programming. In the Stephen Whitfield book, The Making of Star Trek, it's mentioned that Gene Roddenberry also planned to have some of the men aboard the Enterprise walking around in skirts to show that gender roles would be done away with in the future. The NBC executives of the mid-1960s killed the idea, but in the first episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, after Roddenberry had gained total control over the production, a few men were shown wearing a skirt uniform. But even in the mid-1980s, this proved to be too disturbing for audiences and was quickly dropped. Even with all that has happened in America to destroy conventional morality, even in our modern Barney Frank reality, this cross-dressing element of Things to Come is disturbing. In the film, John Cabal's Technocrat grandson, Oswald, also played by Massey, sitting at his transparent desk with mini-skirts spewing New World Order propaganda, may have actually inspired Fox News guiding guru Roger Ailes. Ailes poured his info babes into short skirts, sitting them at transparent lucite news desks just like Oswald, complete with special leg lights. All the better for injecting serial lies, hate, fear, and warmongering propaganda directly into the most primitive sex response part of the human brain. In the case of Ailes' info babes, the method is effective rather than jarring and repulsive. No critical thinking going on with Fox male viewers when ex-lingerie model Kimberly Guilfoyle is on camera with her miniskirts and stiletto heels banging the desk for police state action against the evil Muslims. Korda's Things to Come has fallen into the backwaters of film history and into the public domain. Most younger folks won't even look at a black and white film these days. Perhaps the film failed to have staying power because the specific predictions for what the world would look like didn't seem to fit what actually transpired in the mid to late 20th century. Most specifically, the idea that the war and aftermath would drag on through the 1940s, 50s, and into the 1970s. Were Wells and Korda wrong, or are we being too literal? Think about it. Hasn't the world been in a continuous state of regional war since World War II? Hasn't the zombie-like walking sickness depicted in the film actually come to pass in various forms of mass extermination by governments such as AIDS, autism, GMO, depleted uranium illness, and a host of other warfare-related manufactured and environmental plagues? Are these plagues the underground elite's method of thinning the herd, especially aimed at getting rid of the pants-wearing, testosterone-soaked alpha males? Further supporting the accuracy of Wells' vision, hasn't the infrastructure of the old world been allowed to fall into disrepair bordering on collapse? Iraq, Egypt, Syria, and Libya all look very much like the ruined cities in Things to Come. Haven't Cabal-style elitists disappeared trillions of dollars and begun to build themselves massive underground cities as the surface world falls into disrepair and chaos? H.G. Wells was apparently quite fond of the concept of underground cities for the elite after societal collapse, as evidenced by an even more popular work of his, The Time Machine. As you think about Things to Come as a form of propaganda, you must get your mind around the fact that the character of Sir Boss is presented in the most negative terms, but he at least serves a noble purpose of being a small speed bump to the New World Order. Surely he's depicted as a selfish, gun-toting, drunken primitive dressed in skins like a caveman or an American mountain man, but his position defending his nation-state from an international cabal of scientific elitists, is that really bad? It all really comes down to what kind of a future we want. Will it be the John Cabal, Piers Morgan, Zbigniew Brzezinski world government anthill, where the needs of the individual are crushed in service to the central planner's agenda? Or will it be a chief Alex Jones, Thomas Jefferson future, where individual ambition and talent form a tense but energetic alliance? There is at least one point on which Cabal and Jones seem to agree, but for totally different reasons. Our fate is in the stars. It was no coincidence that our freedom as Americans began to evaporate much more rapidly on the day America's frontier was officially closed in 1890. There was nowhere left to run for free spirits. We were cornered by the banking mafia's foundations and central planners. Within only 23 years of the closing of the frontier, we had a private central bank that would finally hogtie the breadth and width of America. Cabal wants to spread his seed and his elitist blueprint of society to bring the resources of the universe under the dominion of the oligarchs, while Jones has often stated that he wants mankind to go to the stars, to establish a new frontier, to escape the gravitational force of an evil cabal that is the definition of darkness, an insatiable, ravenous black hole of destruction. As Oswald states at the end of Things to Come, which shall it be?
Which shall it be?